Hey kids, this is Ivan. I think as human beings, we're full of conflicting desires. It's part of the human condition. We want things which are diametrically opposed to each other. We can't have both. We have to choose one or the other. And this happens over and over again throughout our lives in various areas. And I got reminded of this today during a little discussion. In our Mythos game, my character, Zachary Bishop, has been reduced to zero tenacity. Through this horrible turn of events on the ship that we are on in the Pacific, the Dreams of Paititi. Terrible things have happened to all of us, and now he's down to zero tenacity as a result of like 4 separate bad rolls. And so at this point, he's incurring some penalties. And so, I fired back to Anthony because it's play by post, by email, and we also have like a little bit of a chat. Otherwise, I have to get a hard copy of the rules of Mythos because that's what we're using as a system, and I have the PDF, but it's just, I'm more comfortable with the book. And it's requiring more page flipping for me to kind of wrap my head around the whole system, even though I have something like Raiders of Relia, which is darn close. But I wasn't sure where he was using the rules for tenacity from, because I don't believe they're actually contained in Mythos proper. I think he kind of shoehorned them from someplace else. So I kind of asked, and he said, well, I put the effects that you're going to be concerned with, or the rules in the post itself. He said, but dude, you've got to, he didn't say dude, but he said dude. You got to stop reading the GM section of these kind of games because you're giving yourself way too many spoilers. You only have one chance to have a first experience. And you're giving yourself a lot of spoilers already. And I kind of laughed in recognition. And fortunately, part of the thing is I haven't, in like something like Raiders of Relia, even though I've got the GM's guide, I haven't actually gotten to that section yet. So I haven't read the GM's advice. So bad on me for not quite, for reviewing the book. Not quite getting to that part of it yet. But, point was taken, and I smiled a little bit, and I realized I do have these conflicting desires when it comes to role-playing games at times. Now, I'm definitely the kind of person that does not like spoilers. I don't like watching movie trailers because I'd rather just kind of go in completely blind. If somebody's seen a movie or watched a book that I'm interested in, if they start to discuss it, they're treading on some seriously thin ice because I will get really mad if you ruin something for me. Don't want to spoiler at all. To me, like having that first virgin experience, if you will, is really, really important. I think a lot of what we've talked about in the past, what I've talked about in the past, which I think some people are still chasing after, is that feeling they had when they first started playing role-playing games. And for me, it was way back, 1981 Moldvay Basic. And I think there's a certain part of the OSR where we're trying to recapture that original experience where everything was new and fresh and great. And a lot of people are, whatever role-playing game you grew up with, there's that kind of, you're never going to have that first experience again. And I even thought about it, in the context of this discussion, for games that are like something like Call of Cthulhu. I think the ultimate experience would be to be somebody that was completely unfamiliar with the mythos, just unfamiliar with Lovecraft at all. Can you imagine playing that sort of game and just not having any idea of the conceits, like what goes on in that, the concepts, the gods, the whole 9 yards? It'd be awesome that first time, just not to know what the heck is going on. In fact, I remember talking to Eloy at one point, and he mentioned the idea that playing games like that. And right now, he's running our Delta Green game. It can be very powerful to use the basic concepts, the basic ideas, but change the names, not use the same old tired gods, that kind of thing. Anyhow, I'm digressing, but you get the point. It's can be very important to not have spoilers, to keep that your first experience. Because there's this gap between player knowledge and character knowledge, which we talk about an awful lot. But as a player, it's really cool to not know. That's part of the experience. But what's the conflicting desire that I have? I have never, since 1981, picked up a role-playing game with the intention of only being a player. I've always, ever since I picked up that first copy of Moldvay Basic, I had the idea, well, I would like to run this as well. And so when I grab a new game, I, very often will read the whole darn thing. It doesn't occur to me that, hey, maybe I should not read certain things because I want to play this and not know some of this information, not know the meta plot, not know whatever's going on in the setting. And so I ruin a lot of those experiences for myself because I read the whole thing because I want to know it. And sometimes it's just because I want to know it. But sometimes it's because, I have the intention of running this thing, so I want to understand how everything works. I want to know how all the moving parts work. I want to kind of grok the fullness of the entire setting, that sort of thing. And I smiled and said, sometimes I need to remember that, at this point right now, right where my feet are, I'm just a player in the game. And that's probably the wrong way to say it, but I'm a player. That's my focus, as being a player, not looking ahead to the future and running the game. And so there's those times that I shouldn't read that sort of stuff because I'm only going to have one shot at this first experience. But it's funny. I have friends that only want to play, have never, have no aspirations of being a game master. It doesn't interest them, whether they're, intimidated by it or just doesn't. That's not what they want to do. I can't relate to that. I've always wanted to do both. And so it's really funny, to see those conflicting desires, rear their heads at the same time. That one that I don't want any spoilers. I want to go on this and be surprised. And the other one where I really want to understand everything that's going on with this game, with this system, with this setting. And, remembering like that I need to choose one because, I don't get to go back and get a second shot at not knowing, if you know what I mean. What if you can relate to that? Have you had that happen to you? Tell me about it.